Okay, does anybody see a sign saying that it started yet? Yes,
Yes.
okay. All right. So, welcome to our Sunday call for the UK. This is 4 o'clock in the afternoon in Thailand, which would be about 10 or 11 or something like that in the UK, depending upon what time of year it is. So, welcome everybody. Um, and Susan has a question that's a general topic that we would say about old age. And the Buddha talks about old age in the sense that old age, sickness, and death are forms of dukkha. But it's not just humans that get old, dogs get old, television programs get old, and then they get sick and then they die, get taken off the air. Laptops get old, get slow, and then put on a shelf to collect dust, whether it's working or not. So, in that sense, everything is subject to this. This happens to everything. It is actually the natural outcome of the law of cause and effect, and that the physicists pretty well know that it's a cause or that it's a law, but right now we have no way of measuring it. And the reason for that is the highest speed camera is very complex. It has pixels, it's got wires, it's got processing, and things like that. And so many thousands of causes and effects happen in order to get one image on the screen for this highest of camera speeds. And yet, we're trying to measure one cause effect cycle, and we can't. We don't have the equipment to do that. There is, but in fact, any equipment that we would have that could measure the cause and effect would have to have little tiny causes and effects. And we're talking about the tiniest cause and effect that there is, and it cannot be measured. We don't know what the speed of it is or anything. But they do know at least one thing, and that is the speed of light is determined by this cycle, is some sort of quantum that's much faster than light, but it's a fixed event about just how things move. Well, hello, DJ. Glad to
Hello.
see you.
Glad to see you.
All right. So, um, we're talking about old age today, and that old age, everything gets old because everything is subject to cause and effect. And this cause and effect cycle happens very rapidly, maybe something like 10 to the minus 40th of a second, a billionth of a trillionth of a quadrillionth of a 10 billionth of a second. That's how fast this cause and effect relationship is. It's a fundamental property of the universe. And that basically, right now, as we're talking, hundreds of trillions of things are happening right in front of you, each one of you, and you're not even aware of it. You're not paying attention. So, when we don't pay attention to the really fast causes and effects, an example of that is that if a cup drops off of the shelf or off the table and it heads to the floor, are you capable, if it's within your reach, to pick it up out of the air and not let it land? Okay, this is your own personal reaction time, and things are happening very fast that we don't respond to or we react to very well. But getting back to the point about old age is that if something keeps changing and changing and changing and changing, eventually it's going to change to something completely different than what it was. And this is what we mean by the aging process, that everything ages, everything gets old, partly because it keeps being bombarded by all of the things that are happening around it. And so, if we can see it this way, we can recognize that caught in a cycle, and everyone on this call is going to get old. And most of us are not going to like it. In fact, there's something really funny about the human being, especially in the society that we're in, is that whatever age a person is, they don't want to be that age. They want to be some other age. And so young people want to be a little older. Old people want to be a little bit younger. And nobody's really happy with the age that they actually are. And that another quality that we're looking at is that people who are young have a kind of a pride in being young. Young dancers can dance very fast. Young kids in school think that their parents are pretty dumb and that they have pride for that. And the Buddha had a sutta that he talked about in the sense of, in fact, from this sutta, I made a poem about 30 years ago. But it goes like this: is pride, pride for being alive. We all have pride for being alive, but dead, dead, we're all going to be dead. So why have pride for being alive? And then pride, pride for being young. We all have pride for being young, but old, old, we'll all get old. So why have pride for being young? And so it goes. Health, health. We all have health. We're all proud of being healthy. And then we get sick. So why have pride for being well when in fact sickness is going to come? That this is one of the qualities that we can see is that we are all destined for old age, sickness, and death. In fact, some of us are quite lucky, well, I would say really unlucky. You're lucky if you do get old, get sick, and die, because your only option is to die young. So be happy that you can make it to be old, because your only option is to be dead by now. So the question is that if we know that we're going to be getting old, can we make sure, can we make plans, can we do something so that in our old age things are going to be okay? Because there's an awful lot of people who get old enough that everybody around them dies, and they don't have any friends left. They wind up in a rest home. In fact, the rest home business is quite remarkable, especially in the United States. My family was in the rest home business, and so I pretty well understand it, the politics and all. There are a few old folks' home and rest homes in Thailand, but not very many. And many of the people who are in the rest homes in Thailand are foreigners because they can find cheap accommodations in Thailand better. That in fact in Thailand, there's two ways of doing it. One is to be a monk or a nun for many years, and then as you get old, the monkhood is going to take care of you. The other possibility is in Thailand, they have a huge, deep family system, a structure. And this structure is highly cohesive. And in fact, I have known this for many years, and I'll go ahead and tell you my story about it is that I knew that I was going to get old. I knew that a long time ago, but by the time I was getting in my 60s, I recognizing, well, here it comes. This getting old is not way off in the distance like it does when we're young, when we're getting into our 60s and we recognize, well, here it comes. And so I actually made arrangements. I had the opportunity to join a Thai family, and I made sure that the Thai family was going to be cohesive. In fact, the way that I helped make sure of that is that partly Thailand is a matriarchal society, and so I've set it up to promote Tam, my wife, to be the matriarch of her family. That guarantees me having good care in my old age. And so the other part of that is by taking care of my family, taking care of my stepson, taking care of my stepdaughter, taking care of cousins in the sense of loaning them money and things like that. For one thing is that was about to get drafted. Now in Thailand, it's so common that it's bribery that they've even got a fixed price for it. And he had 55,000 baht that he had to come up with to stay out of the army. And so guess where he came? He came to me. And so I gave him the money to do that. That puts our family system tight together. If we were in the West and a son-in-law or someone came and says, hey, I need, $15,000 or something like that to stay out of jail, most of the people in the West are not going to do it. It has to do with family cohesion. And I will take a moment to talk about that in the West, over the past 400 or 500 years, especially with the United States, but also with Europe, is the family structure has been rotted away, it's been banged around, and one of the ways that happens is with war. And there's been a lot of wars in Europe that tears apart families. Also, religions, especially when you have a religious schism, some of the family goes with one and some with the other. And there was a huge schism in the Catholic Church. It started in like the late 1300s with a 100 Years' War that was very, very religious oriented. And by the time the Gutenberg press came out, it really got hot. And so now you have pilgrims leaving England and wherever to go to the what is now the United States, going to the Americas. That also broke up families. And then we had another war with the British, and that broke up families. And then we had the Civil War, and that broke up families. And then we had Westward Ho, and that broke up families. And now when a kid leaves high school, he doesn't leave high school and finish high school and nothing else much happens. Oh no, his whole life changed. He leaves home too. And that helps break up the families. And then he goes to some highfalutin university and gets a highfalutin degree. And then he goes to get a highfalutin job. And guess what? There are no highfalutin jobs at home where his families are. And so they are probably in southern Mississippi, and he moves to Seattle. And this is what's been breaking apart our families in the West, to where Thailand, over the many centuries, have been doing a whole lot to keep that family cohesion together. And so that's one of the benefits that I've seen with being in Thailand and being able to establish myself within a Thai family, is that I know I'm going to be well taken care of. The question for each one of you, whether you're young or old right now, is what's going to happen with you in your old age? You're going to be needing care. You're going to be getting sick. Old age means that you don't have the motor movements, that you stumble and fall. And in fact, I had a good friend. He was both a medical doctor and a chiropractor. And what he said was really remarkable. He says it's often that old people will fall and break their hip, and that doesn't happen. What happens is that they break their hip, and then they fall because the hip is broken. They didn't break the hip because they fell because their hip broke. Things happen almost automatically. You don't have to fall down to break your hip. Just getting the hip old is enough to break it. If you begin to recognize that your old age is going to be there for you, what are you going to do for your own old age? Now, nobody much takes or pays any attention to this, but Dr. Susan is actually being slapped around with it because now she's dealing with someone in her family who has gotten old. If your dad, in fact, had planned more carefully about his old age, you wouldn't be in the situation that you're in. That's what happens is that the primary caregivers wind up getting way too much responsibility because the people who are getting old, they don't plan for it. They just kind of say, well, I'm okay today, Therefore, I'm going to be okay tomorrow. And I don't have to do anything about it. And so it's almost always the family that has to take care of it. The same thing, by the way, happens when people die. Almost no one knows in advance that they're going to die. And so many people don't have a will, they don't take care of things, they don't pack right, and all of this kind of stuff. And so we need to plan on this. This is major teaching of the Buddha, that you are going to get old. You are going to get sick. You are going to die. Don't say, oh, no, not me, because everybody this happens to. Not a person gets out of it. So we begin to think about it. Well, what are you going to do? What kind of family structure do you want to have around you? That, in fact, one of the things that we know is that there is a particular chemical called cortisol, and that it is actually put out, I've heard, by the adrenaline gland. If anybody's got any real medical knowledge and I'm making a mistake, please correct me. But basically, this cortisol is like adrenaline, except that adrenaline is very, very fast acting. It's highly combustible. And so it gives us energy immediately if we need the energy. If we don't, then this adrenaline winds up as anxiety, where it's basically we're all dressed up for a fight or a flight, and there's no place to go. An example of that would be you're sitting there at your desk doing your own business, say you're checking your checkbook or whatever like that, and then you see the boss come down the hall, and immediately we start cleaning our desk. We're expecting him to come. And he may not have anything to say to us, but what happens is that adrenaline comes into the body, or maybe the boss is yelling at us. We can't fight him. That's not allowed in our society. You can't hit somebody just because they're correcting you. And we can't run away from the boss, but we have all of this anxiety because of all of this adrenaline. But getting back to it, the adrenaline has a close neighbor. And the distinction between cortisol and adrenaline is that cortisol builds up over your life. The more adrenaline that you pump in, the more cortisol is also going to become in the system. And guess what they have found now is that elderly people have a high level of cortisol. And that they're kind of relating this to the idea that when we get old, we get grumpy. Old, they've even got movies about it, grumpy old men. And that professional caregivers, they don't like sometimes the elderly that they have to work with because the elderly are grumpy. One of the reasons why they're grumpy is because they're getting old and they don't like it. Another reason why people get grumpy in old age is because they get sick and they don't like it. So here we are, not dead yet, but we're feeling like we're ready to die, but we don't want to die. And so things are happening and we don't want it to happen because we haven't done any planning for it. We're saying, oh, I'm not going to get old, and then all of a sudden we are old. And so people get grumpy in their old age. Well, when people are grumpy in their old age, the family don't want to take care of them. And so if you're going to get old, and you certainly will, one of the things that would be very valuable for you is to have some Dhamma so that when you get old, you don't get grumpy. You can stay happy when you're old. If you are happy, you're more than likely going to be able to find people who are going to be taking care of you. But if you're grumpy and miserable and tired and sick and want everybody to know it, then they don't want to take care of you. So that's one of the things that I've recognized in my age, I'm getting close to 80 now, is that I do need help from my family. And therefore I have to be very, very kind, very polite, very grateful to everything that Tam does. Because if I get really grumpy at her, she doesn't want to take care of me. So this is one of the things then that happens that puts some people in the position that Grandpa is getting really sick. He's really getting old. He's really getting grumpy, and nobody wants to take care of him. But someone in the family will wind up, maybe it's a daughter or something, say, well, I'll do it. I don't want to do it, but I know it's got to be done. That in fact, it really does have to be done in the sense that if we can take care of someone in their old age, then we can pretty well manage our own old age so that we can be taken care of also. But if we don't want to take care of anybody that's old, then when it comes time for us to get old, probably nobody wants to take care of us either. So, hi, Anna. Glad to see you. We're talking about old age right now. There's really not a lot to talk about. Once we recognize that you're going to get old, I can just shut up. But there is more a little bit that we can go into it in the sense of recognizing that there is dukkha there. There is going to be some real dukkha. You don't like it when you get old. Nobody here is old enough to really recognize what old age is like. But those people who have got old, they'll tell you they don't like it. And they probably tell you in a grumpy way. So that leaves then the caregivers with a job to do, and they often resent the fact that nobody else in the family is wanting to help. So this winds up being now a management problem for those who are doing the caregiving, in the sense of what do you have as a responsibility? Can you get the family to do one big thing that will make your life easier over the long term? One of the things, in fact, that really happens often in families is that nobody wants to take care of Grandpa. Let's put him in a rest home. And the rest home people, they want some money for that. Sometimes they even want you to put them in your will. And they make it really hard. So I would, partly because my family has been in the rest home business, I know it pretty well, I would recommend that you don't plan on going to a rest home or a nursing home or an old age home when you get old. That's not a good option. What can you do then? Can you maintain your family so that you can get taken care of without the family deserting you in the time of need? So can you, in fact, find a way to take care of someone at home? Think about it for yourself. Would you rather be at home when you're old and sick? Or how about even dying? Do you really want to die in a hospital? Or do you want to die at home? In fact, if you'd be sick, if you could get sick and get taken care of while you're sick, I bet everybody would choose being at home and being sick than in a hospital. I know I've been in and out of hospitals sometimes. I'll go in because I need to go in, but the first thing I want to do once I get into the hospital is get out. Nobody wants to stay in a hospital. Nobody wants to stay in a facility. And so giving that as an option to your family when they get old is not a good idea. What we want to do instead is plan not just for ourselves when we get old, but where our family members are also going to get old. What are we going to do to take care of them? Are we going to be able to take care of them happily, or are we going to get grumpy because they're getting grumpy? Or can you cheer them up so that they don't be so grumpy? So I think that a lot of the questions that we would have around this would be logistical issues, like how can I get the other family members to do their fair share when grandpa gets old. Normally, it's the primary daughter. It's the elder daughter in the family who winds up having to take care of daddy. Or optionally, it's the youngest daughter. But one of the daughters winds up being responsible for taking care of dad. And that's also true of taking care of mom. That when mom gets old, one of the daughters has to take care of them. Now, this is one of the things that's very interesting about Chinese culture, is because they're doing it in the short term. If the family, the mom and dad, say, oh, we only want boys because we know that the boys will be financially capable of taking care of us when we're old, except for one thing, and that is that that's not the care that you want. It's better in the Chinese culture to say, oh, we should have a daughter so that when we get old, she will actually take care of us. That the son may put in a bit of money to it, but he don't want to sit there and rub your legs. The son does not want to clean your bed when you've messed in the bed. That all of these things happen, and the main daughter is normally responsible for the care of her parents. Dr. Susan, does this scenario that I'm making, does this fit your situation?
Pretty much.
Pretty
Yes,
much.
pretty much. And I think, I mean, this has been going on a long time, and part of what I am asking, I suppose, is sometimes dealing with my own frustrations and my own resentments about how things have worked out. You're right, actually. My parents completely failed to plan for their old age, utterly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very lucky in that Dad takes your approach. He's very polite to everybody who comes in to help, very pleasant. So he hasn't reached the grumpy old man stage yet. So yes, you have described it. And of course, in the West now, especially, we have small families where family members are scattered all over the world. They're not even local to parents anymore, which is also our situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the things that's happened out of, let us say, out of the deep, dark history is that we tend to think, it can be said like this: blood is thicker than water. Have you ever heard that expression? Okay, that we do feel responsible for people who have the same DNA that we do. But in modern times, DNA does not a family make. Doesn't make a family. You have to find a way of making a family intentionally. That this is basically what I'm getting around for is that as you plan on your old age, you plan on making a family, whether it's with blood or with water, it's still a family. Because DNA is not enough to make a family. As Susan just described, this situation is that somebody's in Seattle, somebody's in Toronto, someone's in South Africa, and when Grandpa gets sick in Florida, he's not going to get the attention that he needs when it's only blood family. So he needs to establish a family that can take care of him. This is exactly what I was getting at earlier, I think before we started the call, about the Sangha of monks. That one of the things that they will do when a monk gets old and sick is they will assign not a brand new monk, but a younger monk to take care of him. And that the way that it works is that all of the material possessions and everything that the old monk has will be given to the young monk who is taking care of him. But it's only an assignment, that the actual work is done by the entire community of monks in the Wat. And everybody goes to pay respects to the elderly monk. And in fact, people live a long time I've met some really, really old ones. That in fact, the last time that I saw Ajahn Panyananda, he was 97, and he lived a number of years after that. Bhikkhu Buddhadasa died in his youth at the age of 87. Ajahn Po is now 91. He's getting on there. One that's the most interesting for me is that there was a very, very old man, a monk, that had been a monk, and he was actually the Samdet Sangaraj of southern Thailand. Very high-powered, important old man. And Ajahn Po went to ask him a favor of giving me an ordination. And so this old man that I'm talking about, his name is Kesa Thero, and Kesa Thero was the Samdet Sangaraj, most important monk in South Thailand. The last time I saw him was when I was visiting as a monk in Thailand. I was visiting him here in 2002, 2003, that period of time, and he was 107 years old. I remember going into the room that he was in. He was still able to stand up, and he greeted me. And he remembered me. I think that possibly he remembered me because Ajahn Po had contacted him and reminded him. But the thing about Ajahn Panyananda is that even though he was 97 and I hadn't seen him in more than 20 years, and he immediately recognized me. So these old monks, they stay sharp. And they get really, really old. And part of the reason that they can get really old is because they're well taken care of. They're venerated. They're well loved. It's part of the Sangha, and that Sangha is family. And so if any of you are saying, well, I don't have any options for what's going to happen to me when I get old, perhaps becoming a monk or a nun would be the right thing to do, because they do take care of their old folks. Other than that, you need a family. Where's your family going to come from? What are you going to do for your family? If you think about this now, you can plan on it. Plan on when you make a friend now, make a friend for life. That's one of the things that I'm doing now, is that I'm finding friends that I've known for 8, 9, or 10 years. And that's a long time for me because I was a traveler. I was all over the place. I'd make a friend for a really close friend, but it was only a year or 2 or 3. But now that I've gotten old, I recognize the value of friendship so much that I want to have friends off into my old age so that we'll get old together. Well, actually, most of my friends are much younger than I am, but they're getting old just as I am. And so this is something that you can begin to count on, is make friends, because there's going to come a time when you need friends, because you will probably in the West not be able to count upon your family unless you did a trick like I did, and that is marry into an Asian family like in Thailand, so that I know that I can arrange it that I'll be taken care of by a family. So this is the important question that we have to talk about. And I know that this was not exactly what Dr. Susan was wanting to talk about. She wants to talk about how does she take care of an older person. And the answer to that is, it's the job of the older person to arrange for themselves to be taken care of. It's your job you get friends so that you will be able to be taken care of. So now that this situation is resolved, Susan, you still feel a full responsibility, even though your parents did not arrange properly, did not arrange carefully. That in fact, in my family, I had watched it over the years that talking about old age, my great-great-grandmother died at the age of 103, and she had family to take care of her. I remember very, very specifically when I would go into the room as a kid, when I would go visit her, that it was almost a requirement. I think I saw her like every Sunday. My mom would take us and we would go around to various members of the family. and her room had a particular odor that was a combination of coal-fired smoke and urine. That's what that room smelled like. But she was well taken care of. My Aunt Iris took care of her. Um, and also, that worked down to my grandmother, who also died at the age of 101, and that she was the one actually that started the rest home business. And one of the things that she would say often enough to remind everybody that there is no way that she's going to go to a rest home. She's in the business. She knows what it's about, and there's no way that she's going to go into one. But she did manage to have the family strong enough to take care of her. And so down to my mom also had it. So my sister, in fact, my mom took care of my sister for most of my sister's life. And so when my mom gets really old, now it's back for my sister to take care of my mom. So my grandmother died at the age of 101. My mom didn't make it. She died at 97. So that's what I have to kind of look forward to, is that here I am getting to 80, but I've got a plan for the next 20 years. I can't just say, oh, I've gotten old and it's finished now. Oh no, you can stay old for a long time. I tell you what, you will be old a whole lot longer than you are young. So, with my mom taking care of my grandmother and my grandmother taking care of her grandmother, etc., like that, that's the way that it has been historically. And nowadays we can't count on that. That's not possible. Times have changed. And part of it is that we worship youth. You see, in the old days, we actually worshiped the elderly. People who had been around a long time knew a whole lot. But now that times are changing and, high technology and fast-paced living, the youth think that they're better off than the elderly rather than paying high respect to the elderly. And so you have to consider that in our society, old people do not get the respect that they used to get. They used to get a lot of care because they were highly revered. That's in fact exactly what's happening in the Sangha of monks, is that they revere these old monks, and because they revere them, they take care of them. But the youth, they don't. They have pride for youth. They don't, let us say, respect the elderly. And if they don't respect the old people, then why would they bother to take care of them when they need care? And so it's back to the number one daughter to do it. So, Susan, you've already taken on the job of taking care of your dad. The question that I ask is, can you do it happily, knowing the circumstances? Are you going to take care of him and resent it?
I think that's the change that I was talking about. I have been resenting it. It's interesting. A little bit towards him, mostly towards the rest of family, and that change has been realizing this is how it is. This is actually how it is. Just being able to accept this is how it is. Am I going to choose to do this, or am I going to choose not? And I, in fact, know I will choose to do it. So,
well, but the typical way of doing it is that you do it out of obligation. You don't want to do it, but you do it anyway and feel bad. Can you, in fact, congratulate yourself for doing your duty and be happy that you're actually taking care of your dad?
Yeah, I feel I have moved into feeling that actually this is in fact an honor. That actually, so it's more than just accepting. It's that this actually is an honor.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It is an honor when you have respect for him. If you don't respect your dad, then it's not going to be an honorable thing to do to take care of him. And that's possibly what's going on with the rest of the family, is that they do not have any honor. They do not have respect for him, and therefore it's not an honorable duty that they would take on. They resent it. And now, it's probably been long enough into it, is that they expect you to do it, that it's your job now.
Definitely.
And so the way that you can begin to handle that situation is, first off, get clean with yourself that you're not going to get any help from them.
Yeah.
Not in the current situation, but we can change the situation slowly. And one of them is to start to communicating with your siblings and the people in your family by telling them all the good things that are happening to Dad. Promote him, get him up, raise him up to the level of the respect that they should have for him. I mean, in a way, in fact, sometimes a really direct way, they owe their lives to him. If he hadn't been playing around when he was young, they wouldn't even be alive. And they don't recognize that. They kind of think that, oh, I don't owe my dad anything, to where in fact you do owe him. You owe him your whole life. The Buddha talked about it in the sense of that you could carry your mom and your dad around. You could carry your mom on one shoulder and your dad on the other shoulder and carry him around for your whole life, and you still would not be able to repay him and mom and dad for what they did to you, for you. They gave you life itself, your most precious thing. And that's why people get grumpy when they're old, is because they recognize how temporary this precious gift is. It's not last. Nothing lasts. Everything falls apart. If you can recognize that you too are falling apart, then you can begin to, let us say, figure out ways to be yourself honorable and worthy of respect. If you are honorable and worthy of respect, then the family will want to take care of you. And here your dad has gotten himself, he didn't plan physically, he didn't plan emotionally, he didn't plan financially, and now he's kind of stuck and nobody wants to take care of him. So the way that we can get them started to do that would be by raising his level of honor. Remind them how valuable he was to them. You don't have to ask them, you got to come see him, or you got to come do this, or you got to put him in the rest home, you got to do this, you got to do that, because everybody's going to resent that. The way to handle it instead is by joyfully telling them how much fun that you're having with Dad. That in fact, engaging him into conversations. That's one of the things that I really loved about my dad, even though that he did not last that long. He made sure that I had a good handle on heritage, that I know a huge amount of history of the state of Oklahoma, because he was born in Oklahoma in 1906. In fact, that's one of the things that hit me with Bhikkhu Buddhadasa, is he was exactly the same age. They were born within 6 months of each other. And so my dad made sure that I learned about his life, because that gave me a huge amount of respect for him. When I was really young, I didn't have the kind of respect for him. Now in my old age and reflect back, I have a whole lot of respect for him. He treated me very well. And so we can remind your family, Susan, we can reminisce about what the good things that Dad did for us, not just give us life itself, but he nurtured and cared for us. And here we are not nurturing and caring for him when he needs that payback. And so promoting the point that he is worthy of respect. He may not be worthy of the respect like a Bhikkhu Buddhadasa or an Achan Po or an Achan Panyananda or a Kesatero that I mentioned, these old monks that are highly, highly respected. Your dad didn't plan for any of that. But he still is worthy of respect And if you could get the people in your family to understand that they need to respect him, then they will start showing and paying that respect. But we have to build upon that. He has to be worthy of their respect in their minds. And so that's the only thing that I would say. Trying to force them or make them feel bad or guilty because they're not doing their duty to dad, it don't work because they don't see any duty that they have to dad. So we have to work on that. Where the duty comes from is because he's worthy of respect. He's worthy of that. And by seeing him, because you see that he's worthy, and you, when you're spending time with him, don't do just the duties of taking care of him physically, but we also have to engage, tell him jokes, ask him questions about when he was young, let him fill in some of the blanks that you didn't know. I mean, if he's as old as I am, he can remember all the way back in the 1950s. A lot of stuff happened in the 1950s, and you guys don't know much about it. But our parents, if we can engage them, they will actually fill us in on a lot of the stuff that happened. That in fact we will gain great respect for them if you can get them to talk. So in that regard, I would say go to dad, ask him a lot of questions, let him give you a whole lot of old information that when people lose their minds, they lose it backwards in the sense that we can't remember where the car keys are. We can't even remember where the car is. But I remember playing with that toy when I was a little boy. All right, so that kind of memory he will have. So engage him with that, get some data, and then go share all of that marvelous information that you've gathered up with the rest of the family. Get them curious and interested in him. And then they will begin to see in their own hearts that they've got a duty to him. And so that would be the way that I would work with this. This is what this whole talk has been around, is getting around to yourself, is you are worthy of respect. You have lived a life. And the older you get, the more you've learned and the more you're willing to, that you're capable of being venerated. So start acting as if you are venerable, that you are a venerable, because that happens together at the same time. In fact, that we get both venerable and vulnerable and worthy of that respect. So that respect goes in both directions. If you're working with a really old person, then give them the respect that's due and get the information from them that garners that respect. Find out everything. In fact, I was so curious when I was a little kid. Everybody was really curious about my great-great-grandmother. A few things about her just as details. She was the very first female postmaster general in a town in South Carolina. Now that's amazing. She also, when she was 100 years old, she actually got a letter from President Eisenhower. Now that was remarkable. He congratulated her for being 100 years old. So there's a whole lot of detail that I have about her that I don't want to share, bore you guys with all of that. But when I think of her as very, very fondly. Just like, but I felt very fondly for her when I was a little boy. In fact, when she died, I was 12 years old and I was a big kid already, and I was actually a pallbearer at her funeral at the age of 12. I helped carry that casket. I wanted to. I asked to do it. They let me do it. I felt really pleased and proud that they'd let me carry that casket for my great-great-grandmother. Most of you probably never even consider it. Do you have a great-great-grandmother? Do you know anything about her? Do you know when she was born? Do you know her name? That's amazing, okay, that we don't even remember our old people. But if we have great veneration for them, then that we become worthy of respect because we give respect. If you are a respectful person, then you are worthy of other people respecting you. That in fact, that's where we can look for. You know, in Buddhism, they have this position that's called an arahat, and a lot of people have a whole long list of things of what it takes to be an arahat. But the original definition of the word and the way that the Buddha used the word is that an arahat is someone who is worthy of gifts and worthy of respect, worthy of veneration. And so if you're in Buddhism and you want to be an arahat, that's the trick, is to live your life as if you are worthy of being respected by the people around you, especially the ones who were younger than you are. And if you can get the family into that issue of being respectful, to venerate, to respect and honor the old people, then they'll take care of them better. And your dad hasn't probably done very much to gain that respect, to gain that honor from his family. To where, because of the way that I've been doing it and recognize my old age comes, I've actually been training my Thai family to respect me, to venerate me, because that's the way that it will guarantee that I'll have. Because in fact, it's quite possible that I'll outlive Tam. I'll outlive my wife. So I mean, then I'm going to have to rely upon her siblings, her family, her daughters, her cousins. That in fact, she calls Pum a son, but he's actually just a nephew. But it's just, we call it just a nephew in English and in Western culture. But in Thai culture, he's close enough to her that she considers him her son, even though it was her sister that gave birth to him. All right, so I can count on Pum. Even if Tam is dead, I could still count on my family because I've been intentionally putting the family in a position of making me the old grand patriarch. One of the things about that that's kind of funny is that I'm now older than anybody in her family. I'm older than Tam's mother. I'm older than her mother-in-law. But they don't live so long in Thailand. So I'm an old man. They don't see people this old much. And so that's part of the respect that they have, is that I've been able to make it this long. All right, so this is one of the things then that we can kind of cap up this talk about, is that it all has to do with veneration and respect. Are you worthy of respect? What can you do to make sure that you're going to have friends and family that are going to take care of you? If you're lucky, you're going to get old and need care. And if you're not lucky, you're going to be dead. So does anybody have any questions or any thoughts about this? I'm sure that people have, I mean, DJ, I see you sitting there shaking your head. Yeah, I'm going to get old. I better plan.
Yeah, I've definitely a lot of important thoughts here, especially considering how the attitudes, have changed these days in the West. And it's so interesting. Like, I think people today kind of feel like they don't owe their parents anything, because they think, well, they chose to have me. I had no role in that. So like, that's all their responsibility. And, but during this talk, I just started thinking about, parenthood and actually how difficult of a job it is. I mean, the only way we can come into the world is if someone gives birth to us. We can't choose it,
But that's just an event. That's kind of a one-time shot. Mom has a lot of work bearing us, but when birth starts, that's when the work starts.
Yeah.
That because you've made it to adulthood, that meant that someone put in an awful lot of time and effort to change your diapers, put a bottle in your mouth or a tit or something like that, feed you, dressed you, clothed you, made you go to school, not just the first day of school, but made you go to school day after day after day after day. They made sure of it, right? So they put a lot of time and effort into you, and you owe them for that. So, gaining respect, that's the way to get started then. That's a major point that you're bringing up, is that if we can learn to respect our own parents, our own family, then that will give us the kind of, let us say, door to open so that we can find ways of being respected ourselves. By being respectful, by being honored, by taking care of someone, we gain that honor and respect. That imagine, actually, this is something that we can talk about, Susan, is that I bet that you don't really consider it, but the other people in the family highly respect you for taking care of Dad, for doing their part of their business, because they know deep inside they owe it to him. And here you are doing their job for them. You don't have to remind them of that in that sense, but you can share your joy and share your time with him, share your respect for him with them to help foster their own respect. That this is when this idea of respect and honor really comes up, is when people are sick, when they're old, when they need things. Okay, you probably heard about the old expression then, a friend in need is a friend indeed. Right, so go make friends with your dad. Now here's the thing, is that it goes both ways. That if you need something and somebody's your friend and takes care of you, then he's a good friend indeed. But also, if we take care of someone else when they need it, then that cements that relationship for us also. So it's a two-way street. That if you have to honor, respect, or to give someone something, to take care of them, both people benefit.
And that's perhaps why I ended up thinking this is an honor, because certainly my father and I have a good relationship. We sit down and reminisce and stories and things like that, but we have always had a good relationship. So there has been the benefit of that and the respect that goes actually both ways. So yes.
Yes. And so you can consider that the honor and respect that you have for him, and that he honors and respects you for taking care of him. You have good conversations, etc., like that. And here you are moping and complaining about the rest of the family not doing your honorable job for you.
Yes,
as you know, that's the way that I
absolutely.
teach you. I always turn things around.
No, but this is really helpful, because as I said, I started to feel a change in how I was looking at it, because I knew that what I was doing wasn't working for me. It just wasn't working for me. So yeah, but yes, you're absolutely right.
So if you can then gain that freedom of respect for him, that will give you the freedom to not have to worry about what the rest of the family is doing. Then, in fact, this is one of the examples that's really good. The example is something that we've known a long time. Have you ever heard of Samuel Longhorn Clemens? He was known as Mark Twain, very famous author way back when. Okay, so one of the books that he wrote is Tom Sawyer. And in this book, Tom he lives with his aunt, and his aunt makes him paint the white picket fence out in front. She cajoles him and makes him do it. So while he's out there making the fence white, he's painting it, his friend Huckleberry Finn comes by. And they get into a conversation, and Tom says, "Oh, I'm having so much fun painting the fence. This is just so good. I really, really like and enjoy painting this fence." And pretty soon, Huck starts saying, "Well, can I do some too?" And Tom says, "Well, I've only got one brush, but here, you can use it." Guess what now? Tom doesn't have to paint the fence. He's gotten Huck interested in doing it for fun. If we can make something fun, it's not work. That's the first part. And the other one is that if you can show people that you're having fun and stuff, they want to do it too. And so this is the way that you could begin with this story to recognize that, hey, if you promote to your family how much fun and how much joy you get and what respect that you have and tell them the benefits of caring for your dad, they'll want to do it too. I really remember that story. It's so cute. You can actually Google it. It's quite famous. To paint that picket fence, have fun at it. And if you can convince somebody else that what you're doing is a lot of fun, they'll go do it and you won't have to so much. And this is a perfect example of that, is taking care of someone in their old age. You can either make it a misery and hate it, send them off to some institution or whatever, or you can actually enjoy your time with them. Because you're going to do it anyway. You're going to take care of him anyway. We know you're going to take care of him anyway. So your choice is whether you're going to have fun doing it or not. And right now you've been choosing not. Or not right now, but before we had this conversation, you were choosing to do it and not feel good. And now you can recognize, oh, I can go do that and feel really good about it. And if I can show my family how much fun I'm having and what good it is, then maybe they'll want to help you paint that fence too. So does anybody have any questions? Marcus, how you doing there?
Yeah, this has been a really good talk. I wasn't expecting this coming in, but there's definitely a lot to reflect on, also in terms of how I view my family and my parents. You know, I think there's a lot of unhelpful attitudes I had and still have, so it's a lot to think about and to feel
Good.
a lot more grateful.
Right. Think about that. Put that as part of your thought process, rather than the thoughts of, oh, I don't like my family because of this, that, and the other. Start appreciating them. Start having thoughts about it. Start having wholesome, happy thoughts. So, Pedro, what do you think?
Oh, so cool. Thank you for this conversation. I wanted also to say hello to Giorgio, who calls from Italy, like me. He's Italian too. He's like the first person from Italy after me in the Sangha. So welcome to the call. And greetings.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Pietro. Sorry, my connection is really bad because I'm traveling, so I cannot switch on the camera.
That's all right. I'm really glad that you were here. Do you have any comment, Georgia?
I think, yes, I have a bunch of comments. One of the word maybe respect, because you say living by having respect to people, so they respect you, kind of respect you back, and we take care of you, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe instead of respect, I would say maybe love. Respect I see as like a kind of a lower value that is a bit forced. I would say maybe love people, not that they love you back. Otherwise, it seems kind of a transactional relation. I mean, I will take care of you, so you will take care of me in the future, which is maybe doesn't resonate a lot, the word respect to me. And then the second point probably is about you take, it's funny that in all the religion, it's they say, what do you say? Respect first your family. And I remember the 10 commandments in the Catholic religion, and one of them is about the parents.
That's
and
right.
Because
honor thy father and thy mother,
exactly.
that thy days may be long upon the land thy God giveth thee. Okay, there's two issues about that, and that is that if you don't respect your family when you're young, you're not going to live in their house. They're not going to keep your land. You're not going to have the property. You have to honor your parents. You have to honor your family in order to keep the stuff like that. So that's one of the points. But the other part of that one is that the living long. That if you don't respect people, then you're not going to live very long because you're not going to get well taken care of when you get old. I do appreciate your point about love. To be honest with you, I tend to not use the word love because it's a complicated word. It's got a lot of different meanings to it. But we generally, when I use the word respect, we know what that is. That in fact, respect can be so good that it would have to be called love. That in fact, we talk about love and honor, respect. Those are all words used together. But also the word love, like the two women in a catty voice at an event is saying, don't you just love her dress? So it doesn't always, the word love always have the best uses. But in the sense of honor, respect, and love, those are where we're going with this. So I do appreciate your comment about love. Scott, my goodness, you joined just at the last minute, boy. Good to see you.
Hello, good to see you. Yeah, I just popped in a little late.
A little late.
Hi,
We've been
yeah.
talking about getting old.
Yeah, I'm getting older.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and finish this call now. This has been really a lot of fun. I get old. And so I enjoy talking about it. Go ahead, Susan.
All I was going to say is I've noticed Anna's here as well. Anna, sis?
Anna, yes.
Hi.
You've been in and out. Good to see you, Anna.
Yeah, good to see you all. Sorry to join late. I couldn't join before.
That's no problem. So you're planning on coming to Thailand soon enough? Are you going to make it into South Thailand?
Well, I'm planning to go to India and then I will see.
All right. Well, we'll leave that open. Right now, Scott's right here on this island. We've
Yep.
got several kids right here on the island with me right now. As I mentioned before, Kat is at Wat Rua Pa Siang Tung, which is kind of on the other side of the island. One of the things about that is that I'm really glad that the guys are going around and finding places like this, because I've been kind of narrow-minded in the sense of staying close with Achan Po and Deepa Bhawan and Wat Suan Mok. But there are an awful lot of Wats around that are really worthy of visiting, and we have a lot of old monks that are really worthy of respect. And so, gosh, we've got several right now. Daniel is looking for a place to ordain. David has just ordained. Kimasitu ordained about a year ago. Eric has ordained, living in Laos. So we've got a lot of our friends that are actually moving into Thailand and really getting good benefit out of it. And so I'm welcoming all of you guys to get deeper and deeper into the Dhamma. That in fact, one of the points that I made, and I'll make it again, is that if you have any questions about what it's going to be like for your old age, go ordain.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, that's the place to get taken care of in your old age, is because they will do that. If you become a monk or a nun and become old and venerable, they will venerate you, pay respect to you, and take care of you.
Mm-hmm.
And we often don't have any families.
But maybe more difficult for women.
I would think it's just the opposite. It's actually easier for women.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Women are the caregivers anyway.
All right.
Yeah. It's us guys that have so much trouble. I mean, women can see all the troubles that they've got. They don't recognize it. Well, maybe these guys have got it even worse than we do. That women keep families together, not men. Men want to travel and go to this, that, and the other place and all kinds of stuff, and the women will stay at home. That's the old traditional way anyway. The guy goes out to work and mom stays home. She
But
cares for.
that's what's, in a way, that's what's changing. And I
Yes.
think that to ordain as a woman has been quite a struggle in that in having the ordination recognized, or where to go as a woman to actually ordain. And in fact, you know, what we'd really like is I suppose to put our heads together, because Anna's talked about, sort of messaged me about this, and we've messaged back and forth, is where do we go as women? Is it to the Watts that the men are going, or are we not admitted there unless there's a woman present? Because that's one of the things I've been told.
Yes, except that that's not a big deal at all. That
really?
In fact,
tell me
right,
more.
All right. At Wat Suan Mok, there is a women's section, and that basically what's happened in Thailand is this way. Is that when men get old, they've ordained when they're young men. They go around living their lives after they ordained, and then they disrobe, but they stay friends with the monks. They keep going back to the Wat. But in fact, what happens is that they often become the important people, the important lay people at the Wat, like deacons and whatnot like that in the Christian tradition. So when the old man is time for retirement, about the age of 55 or whatever, he will give everything over to his wife, and the wife says, wait a minute, I'm going with you. And so they give the family business or whatever to the kids, and the wife will go build a kuti in the women's section, and the husband will build a kuti in the men's section, and they can be friends with each other and see each other from time to time. But there are also Wats that are totally for women. Now, one of the things that Kithal or Kat had told me was that there are actually white-robed women, nuns, at the Wat where he's going. It's very, very common. It's not so common in the United States because mostly in the United States the Wats are small. But the bigger Wats in Thailand will always have a women's section. And that some of the women are highly, highly venerated as teachers. I remember one specifically, her name was Achan Ranchuan, who lived at Wat Suan Mok. And she had people coming and visiting her on a regular basis. She was probably for women as powerful and as important as Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. Now that she's dead, I mean, we don't have those kind of memories, but in her lifetime, she was very, very well respected, highly venerated, etc., like that. Now, what we have in the West is the idea of feminism that has to do with equality. In Thailand, the women are not equal to the men in many regards, but the men are not equal to the women in other regards. That in fact, this is a kind of a matriarchal society. So what happens with the deacons at the Wat is because they were told what to do by their wives at home. So the wives are the ones who actually run the Wats, and I've seen that in America very, very strongly. And that when any of the young men want to go to visit a Wat in the United States, my recommendation is go find the old ladies at the Wat, the ones who keep going to the Wat over and over again, and make good friends with them because they're the ones who run the place.
Okay.
All right, so that's the way to look at it is that women have their own things. And I know that because of our ideas of feminism, and the women come around and say, oh, there's nothing for me, it's all for the men. Well, I think that we've talked about this before, Susan, is that women are generally good enough with their lives. It's the men who suffer. It's the men who want to go to a wat or go to a temple or go someplace because whatever they're doing now ain't good enough. But women are more satisfied in their life, and so they're not actually out there looking for a spiritual path or a spiritual journey, but a lot of women do.
Okay, I'm going to tie that with what we've been talking about today. So this kind of all ties together. I think that my spiritual path is not to ordain, but it is to live well and to give respect and all the things that we were talking about actually, as far as family is concerned. But my spiritual path is in the lay community, for me. But and I think we all have to find what our path is. And I understand what you say about feminism. And for me, actually, I will say it's not that I want everything for men to be the same as for women, or vice versa, because I think there are differences.
There are differences.
So I suppose it's learning where people who ask, where people who want to seriously want women, sorry, not people, well, we are all people, but women specifically who want to sample the monastic life, want to ordain, want to do those things, where they go. And I think what you're telling me is head for Thailand, not try to do it in
it's
the
going
US
to,
or the
but it
UK.
will eventually get established in the West. That in fact, the situation is this, that it takes 20 years for a monk to become an elder or a thero to run a wat. So in the West, there have now been bhikkhunis that are just, because it started happening in the late 1990s, there are now nuns who are 20 years in the monkhood and are therefore capable of running their own wat. That one of the points that I'd like to take in a second for an advertisement is that on our website, on the Open Sangha Foundation website, there is a new group of things called there's a slideshow, and there's two slideshows that you guys wouldn't be interested in. One is ordination, and the other one is bhikkhunis, because I was involved with bhikkhunis in United States. They exist. They're there, and that I've got a lot of photos of the bhikkhuni Dhammadina. She actually was involved with ordinations, and so go look for both of those, and you'll see a lot of pictures of bhikkhunis.
I will go look.
That will right. It's actually under the home page. On the menu that you click on home and it'll bring down slideshows. You click on that and there's 4 or 5 slideshows to look at. And I would highly recommend that you take a look at the ordinations and the bhikkhunis, because that actually just going through 50 or 60 pictures is enough to give you a whole lot of answers to a whole lot of questions, giving visual cues like that. So, Anne, I would highly recommend that if you've got any idea about actual ordination, go look at these photos. That in fact,
I looked at them already, and
you
and
already
I
saw.
have to,
You already
yes,
did.
and I have to say that that's very inspiring.
Good. So, it's available to you. You don't have to come to Thailand. There is a nunnery in Southern California that's already there. It's well populated. I think there's 13 or 14 women there. There's also a big wat in Ayutthaya here in Thailand, and I'm talking about big, like 500 or 600 women there. And it was already a wat for women, but it was they had a nominal male monk who was the abbot. But the head nun who had been running the place all along, she was one of the very first ones to ordain, fully ordain. She was one of them that went actually to Taiwan to get the ordination, and now She is the actual abbot of that Wat, but it's not the only bhikkhuni Wat in Thailand. There's several of them. And in fact, some of them have their own web pages. And so the same thing is true in England, because with Achan Sumedo, he's made sure that women have been able to get ordained. And so it's growing. It's just that the monks are already well established because of the lay people, the Thai, the Lao that have come to the West have started it. But once the the monks and the Wats get started, the door is still open for the women. It's not closed. They make separate sections so that the women will stay closer together and the men will stay closer together, but it's in the same facility. Please don't think that that Buddhism is segregating. That in fact the Buddha started it all. He started ordaining women, and that there was quite a number of them that were ordained in his lifetime. And there's always been women that have been interested in the spiritual path, and we will make available more and more. Then, in fact, that's one of the things I hope that the Open Sangha Foundation can do, is to get people inspired to go do something like that. So I am highly, highly in favor of women. Like we've got 2 Annas and Susan and several other women that I haven't seen in a while. And if you guys can make friends with each other, close friends, you guys can get something done. So Anna, don't despair. Don't. Things are going to be available for you.
Okay. No, I'm not despairing.
Yeah, you've already seen the photos, so you know that it's available. I mean, if you've seen those photos, you can see that that there was a number of them where they're very well established. This is actually the nunnery that I'm talking about, is in, of all places, South Carolina.
Also, the photos are...
Yes, it's in Greenville, South Carolina. The reason for it was because they had a whale, a Sri Lankan man who supported to get it going. And he chose, instead of having monks to come and live in a place that he supported, he chose bhikkhunis.
Mhm.
And so there is actually a nunnery in the United States. There's more than one. There's one in California and there's one in South Carolina, and I'm sure that there's others already started.
Yeah, I've heard there were one in France, but now the nuns are too old to teach.
I think that, in fact, that is also true at Plum Village. That Plum Village, women are very, very welcome there.
That's true.
All right. So does anybody have any last comments?
I actually...
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Can I?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, DJ, go ahead.
DJ, okay.
Okay. I was gonna say, I think you have you're doing a good sales pitch on the Dhamma insurance package for old age. So and also, you know, what is the whole of the Dhamma, right? Friendship. So, you know, that's going with the respect there, yeah. So really, yeah, really beneficial talk.
Excellent, excellent. Glad you like it. Was that Giorgio that was speaking also?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, first of all, yes, I think as well, really good pitch. Second, I got a question actually that is very related on what you say regarding choosing a wat or a monastery, because I did a couple of too little experience in Thailand, but I would like to do another one that could be in Thailand or in Laos or Sri Lanka or whatever. To deeper with my Buddhist practice, with meditation and the Dharma. So I would like to receive some, if you have some suggestion for me. I don't know if it makes sense to say this in a big.
Well, let us do it this way. Why don't you give me a call, say tomorrow or so, and we can talk about that for you. And we'll go ahead and finish this call, but we've got something scheduled for you to go ahead and give me a call, and we'll talk about it. I'm really glad to hear that you're that interested. Okay. So let's finish this call. We'll see you later.
Thank you, Bante. See you later.
Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, this
Thank-
has been great.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you,
Bye.
Susan. Thank you so much for your question.
Dhammarato, you have a second. Do you have a second?
Yes, I have a second.
Oh, thank you. Beautiful. Sorry, the connection dropped. And I don't know what you listen until I stopped to speak. But basically, I had an experience in Thailand, a Suamok, for 10 days Vipassana. Was really insightful. And another one in a monastery at the top, on top of Pai. I don't remember exactly the name. Wat Apa Nam. And as I really enjoyed these two experience, I would like to ask if you have some suggestion to do a way longer period in a monastery, maybe minimum 1 month, and so I can deepen my practice, my meditation practice, and learn more about the Dharma and so on. So it would be great to receive some suggestion.
Yes, and my answer to that, and I'll give it again, is that we can go into that in a fairly big detail on another call. So let's finish this one, because it's been going on for about an hour and a half now, and so we can start a call tomorrow. You can call me.
Beautiful. Okay.
Or the next day.
Beautiful.
And I'll be very happy to talk with you about it. It'll take a while. It's not it's not a yes or no answer.
Oh wow! Thanks so much for dedicating so much time. I really looking forward to it. What time do you prefer? In the morning or in the noon or in the afternoon?
Thai time during the daytime, say 9 to 4, something like that in Thailand.
Beautiful.
Thai
I'm in
time.
India right now, so we have just a few hours of difference.
Actually, it's an hour and a half.
Perfect. Okay, great. So talk tomorrow.
Yes, we'll see you. Good to meet you, friend. Good to meet you.
Good to meet you too. Thank you.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, we'll see you.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.